The ancient ship floated in the darkness of dead space like a forgotten dream. It was massive, covered in gold and silver patterns that still glowed faintly after 3,000 years. The Galactic Council had searched for this vessel for centuries. Now, finally, they had found it. Yuna pressed her face against the window of the transport shuttle, her breath fogging the glass. She was a human engineer, part of the cultural preservation team sent to study the discovery. Around her, alien dignitaries whispered in excited voices. Even the usually calm Etherian spellcasters seemed nervous. "That's a Seraphim temple ship," said Teho, her team leader, standing beside her. He was a tall man with tired eyes and a protective nature. "The last one in existence." "It's beautiful," Yuna whispered. "It's also dangerous," Teho warned. The Seraphim were the most powerful beings in galactic history. Their magic could create stars or destroy entire systems. Stay close to the team and don't touch anything. Yuna nodded, but her curiosity was already pulling at her. She had always been like this. Where others saw danger, she saw wonder. The shuttle docked, and the team stepped into the ancient vessel. The air inside was strangely fresh, preserved by magic that still worked after millennia. Strange lights floated near the ceiling, casting soft blue shadows on the walls. Everything was quiet, peaceful, and somehow sad. High Priestess Velsara led the expedition. She was an Etherian, tall and thin with silver skin and 4 arms. Her people were the greatest spellcasters in the known galaxy, though they admitted they were nothing compared to the ancient Seraphim. "The Dragon Prince sleeps in the central sanctum," Velsara announced, her voice echoing through the empty halls. "He has been in cursed slumber for 3,000 years. Many have tried to wake him. All have failed." "Why do we need to wake him?" asked Kite, the human medic on Yuna's team. He was a kind man who worried about everyone. "Because his bloodline holds the key to Seraphim knowledge," Velsara explained. "Medicine that could cure any disease, technology that could feed hungry worlds, art and music lost to time. The Dragon Prince is the last connection to all of it." Commander Rix, a reptilian military officer, stepped forward. His scales were dark green, and his yellow eyes were always calculating. "The Council has authorized any means necessary to wake the Prince. High Priestess, you may begin when ready." Velsara bowed slightly. "We have prepared our strongest rituals, but I must warn everyone, the curse is ancient and powerful. It responds only to one of true heart and equal spirit. We have interpreted this to mean someone of great magical ability." Yuna listened with half attention. The temple ship was fascinating, and she kept looking around at the strange carvings on the walls. They showed dragon-like beings flying through space, breathing fire between stars, building worlds with their bare hands. "Humans, stay in the outer chambers," Commander Rix ordered. "This is delicate magical work. We cannot have interference from non-magical species." Teho gathered his team and led them to a waiting area. Yuna followed, but after an hour of sitting and doing nothing, she grew restless. "I need to find a bathroom," she announced. Kite pointed down a hallway. "I think I saw something that might be one back there." Yuna walked off, grateful for an excuse to explore. The temple ship was like a maze, with corridors that curved in strange ways and rooms that seemed bigger inside than outside. She passed chambers filled with frozen gardens, libraries with books that floated in the air, and workshops where half-finished projects waited for hands that would never return. She was completely lost. "Great," she muttered to herself. "This is fine. I'll just wander until I die or find a toilet. Either works." She pushed open another door and stepped into a vast, circular room. The ceiling rose so high she couldn't see the top. In the center, on a raised platform covered in flowers that never wilted, lay a figure. Yuna walked closer, curious. It was a young man, or something that looked like a young man. His features were beautiful in a way that seemed almost unfair. Long dark hair spread around him like silk. His skin had a faint shimmer, like starlight lived just beneath the surface. Two small horns curved gracefully from his forehead, and she could see hints of scales along his neck and hands. The Dragon Prince. Yuna didn't know who he was. She had barely paid attention during the briefing. All she saw was someone who had been sleeping alone in this big empty room for a very, very long time. "Wow," she said aloud, her voice echoing in the chamber. "Someone really likes their beauty sleep, huh?" She laughed at her own joke, the sound strange in the ancient silence. And then something impossible happened. The Dragon Prince's finger twitched. Yuna froze. She stared at his hand, wondering if she had imagined it. But no. There it was again. A tiny movement, barely visible. The first response in 3,000 years. The door behind her burst open. High Priestess Velsara stood there, her forearms raised in magical gestures, her silver face pale with shock. "What did you do?" the priestess demanded. "Nothing," Yuna said quickly. "I was looking for the bathroom and got lost and ended up here, and I just made a stupid joke and—" "A joke?" Velsara stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the sleeping prince. "We have performed 17 awakening rituals today. Our most powerful magic. He did not respond to any of it. And you tell me you made a joke? I mean, yes? I just said he sleeps a lot. That's it." Velsara was quiet for a long moment, then she turned to a younger Etherean behind her. "Fetch Commander Rix and the human team leader, immediately." Yuna wanted to disappear. She had definitely done something wrong. She was going to get her whole team in trouble. Tae-ho was going to be so angry. But as she waited for the others to arrive, she looked back at the Dragon Prince. He was still again, peaceful and silent on his bed of eternal flowers. Yet something felt different now. The sadness in the room had shifted somehow. It felt less like a tomb and more like a bedroom where someone was finally, after a very long time, beginning to dream of waking up. "Who are you?" Yuna whispered to him. "And why did you respond to me?" The Dragon Prince did not answer. But somewhere deep in his cursed sleep, Hyun-woo, the last prince of a dead empire, the loneliest being in the galaxy, had heard something he had not heard in 3,000 years, someone speaking to him like he was just a person, someone treating him like a friend. And after millennia of silence, that simple thing was enough to make him want to open his eyes again. The interrogation room was cold and uncomfortable. Yuna sat on a metal chair while Commander Rix walked circles around her, his reptilian eyes never blinking. High Priestess Velsara stood by the wall, her forearms crossed in disapproval. A dozen alien dignitaries watched from behind a glass window. "Tell us again," Commander Rix demanded. "Exactly what you said to the prince." Yuna sighed. This was the 5th time she had explained. "I said, wow, someone really likes their beauty sleep. That's it. That's all I said." "Impossible," muttered one of the Etherean spellcasters. "We have used ancient words of power, sacred chants passed down through generations. She speaks common tongue like a child." "I'm right here," Yuna said flatly. "I can hear you." Tae-ho stepped forward from where he had been watching. "With respect, Commander, my engineer has done nothing wrong. She got lost, found the chamber by accident, and made an innocent comment. If that somehow helped, shouldn't we be grateful?" "Grateful?" Commander Rix turned his yellow eyes to Tae-ho. "A human with no magical ability achieved what our finest spellcasters could not. This is not something to be grateful for. This is something to be investigated." Velsara raised one hand for silence. "The commander is concerned, but I believe there is a simpler explanation." She looked at Yuna with something close to curiosity. "The curse was specific in its wording. It responds to one of true heart and equal spirit. We assumed this meant magical equality, someone as powerful as the prince himself. But what if we were wrong? One of the younger Etherians asked. What if equal spirit means something else entirely? Velsara continued. The seraphim were worshipped as gods, the dragon prince most of all. Everyone who approached him did so with reverence, with ceremony, with carefully chosen words of respect. She looked at Yuna. And then this human walks in and teases him about sleeping too much. No worship, no fear, no careful words, just casual friendship. The room was silent. You're saying the curse was about loneliness? Kite asked from his spot near the door. I'm saying it might be. Velsara moved toward Yuna. Would you be willing to try again? Under observation this time. Yuna looked at Tai-Ho, who nodded slowly. I guess so, she said. But I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I wasn't trying to do anything the first time. Then do exactly what you did before, Velsara said. Be yourself. An hour later, Yuna stood in the central sanctum again. This time, she was very aware of the dozens of dignitaries watching from the observation gallery above. Cameras floated around her, recording everything. The High Priestess and her spellcasters stood at the edges of the room, monitoring energy levels and magical responses. Yuna looked at the sleeping dragon prince and felt suddenly very awkward. She said out loud. Hello again. Nothing happened. She tried again, keeping her voice formal and polite. Greetings, honored prince. I hope you are well. Please consider waking up. Still nothing. The spellcasters exchanged disappointed looks. Velsara spoke through a communication device. You are being too formal. That is not how you spoke before. Well, before I didn't have 50 aliens watching me, Yuna replied. She took a deep breath and tried to ignore the audience. She walked closer to the platform, looking at the prince's peaceful face. He really was beautiful, and he really did look like he had been sleeping for way too long. Okay, she said, dropping the formal tone. This is stupid. I know you're probably not even listening, but everyone is watching me like I'm supposed to perform some kind of miracle, and I don't do miracles. I fix broken machines and complain about cafeteria food. No response, but she kept talking anyway. You've been asleep for 3,000 years. That's crazy. Like, actually crazy? Aren't you bored? I get annoyed if I sleep past 8 in the morning. 3,000 years? I would lose my mind. The tiniest flicker of movement. His eyelid twitched. The spellcasters began murmuring urgently, checking their instruments. Yuna didn't notice. She was caught up in her own rambling now. Everyone talks about you like you're some kind of god, the great dragon prince, so powerful, so important. But you know what I see? I see a guy who's been alone in a room for longer than most civilizations have existed. That sounds awful. That sounds like the loneliest thing I've ever heard. His finger moved again, slightly more this time. So, if you can hear me, Yuna continued, her voice softer now, maybe consider waking up. Not because the council wants your knowledge or because the spellcasters want to prove something, just because, I don't know, because sleeping forever sounds really sad, and nobody should have to be that alone. Silence. And then the dragon prince's eyes opened. Not fully, just barely, just a crack. But they were open. After 3,000 years, someone was looking out from behind those ancient eyes. His lips moved. No sound came out at first. The spellcasters rushed forward, but Velsara held them back with a gesture. The prince tried again. His voice was rough, broken from millennia of silence, but one word came through, clear enough for everyone to hear. Finally. Yuna stared at him. Finally? Finally what? But his eyes had already closed again. His body relaxed back into sleep. The moment was over. Yet everything had changed. Commander Rix stepped down from the observation gallery, his expression unreadable. The human has achieved what 17 Etherian rituals could not. She is now assigned as primary contact for the Awakening Project. What? Yuna spun around. No, wait, I didn't sign up for this. This is not a request. The commander's voice left no room for argument. You will report here every day until the prince fully awakens. Whatever you are doing, keep doing it. Velsara approached Yuna after the others had left. The high priestess looked at her with an expression that mixed respect and confusion. In all my centuries of study, Velsara said quietly, I never considered that the key to breaking an ancient curse might simply be talking to someone like they mattered. Yuna shook her head. I didn't break anything. I just talked. Yes, Velsara agreed. And perhaps that is exactly what he needed to hear. Someone who saw the person, not the prince. The lonely man, not the powerful god. She looked back at the sleeping figure on the platform. Keep talking to him, human. I believe he is finally ready to listen. Yuna stayed in the sanctum long after everyone else had gone. She sat on the floor near the platform, looking up at the dragon prince, who was not quite asleep anymore. I don't know if you can hear me, she said softly, but I'll come back tomorrow, and the day after that. And we can just talk about whatever. It doesn't have to be important. In his deep sleep, Hyunwoo dreamed for the first time in 3,000 years. He dreamed of a voice that didn't worship him, a voice that treated him like an ordinary person, a voice that felt like friendship. And slowly, surely, he began the long journey back to waking. Days passed, and Yuna kept her promise. Every morning, she walked into the central sanctum, sat on the floor near the platform, and talked. She talked about everything and nothing. Her work on the ship, the strange food the Etherians served in the cafeteria, the time she accidentally broke an important machine and blamed it on a power surge, her childhood on Earth, in a small town near the mountains where she used to catch fireflies in summer. At first, the spellcasters watched her constantly. They recorded every word, analyzed every response from the sleeping prince. They measured magical energy levels and wrote long reports about this strange human method. But as the days continued, they grew bored. There was nothing dramatic happening, just a young woman chatting with an unconscious man about her boring day. One by one, they stopped coming. Only Velsara remained interested. She would often sit in the observation gallery, watching quietly, taking notes in a language Yuna couldn't read. And slowly, the dragon prince responded. On the third day, his eyes began to track movement beneath his closed lids. On the fifth day, his fingers started to twitch whenever Yuna laughed. On the seventh day, his lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but close. Yuna noticed all of it. She pretended not to because she didn't want to make things weird. But she noticed. You know what's funny? She said one afternoon, sitting with her back against the platform. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of miracle worker now, the human who can wake the dragon prince. But I'm just talking. I'm not doing anything special. Above her, unseen, Hyunwoo's eyes fluttered open slightly. Actually, my friends back home would laugh so hard. I talk too much. Everyone says so. My mom used to joke that I started talking the moment I was born and never stopped. Behind her, a rough voice spoke. She was right. Yuna jumped so hard she almost fell over. She scrambled to her feet and turned around. The dragon prince was looking at her. His eyes were fully open now, ancient and golden, with slit pupils like a true dragon. His face held exhaustion from millennia of cursed sleep. But there was also something else there, something that looked almost like amusement. You're awake, Yuna gasped. You talk too much, he repeated. His voice was still rough, but stronger than before. Every day, so many words, about food and machines and fireflies. You heard all that? Yuna felt her face grow hot with embarrassment. Every word. He tried to sit up, but his body was too weak. 3,000 years of silence. And then you appeared, complaining about cafeteria food. I wasn't complaining. I was sharing my opinions. There's a difference. The corner of his mouth twitched. It was definitely a smile this time. I see. Yuna should have called the others. She should have announced to the galaxy that the Dragon Prince had awakened. But instead, she just stood there, looking at him. How do you feel? She asked quietly. He considered the question seriously. Strange, heavy, like I'm made of stone. He looked down at his own hands, turning them slowly. I had forgotten what it felt like to move. You've been asleep a long time. Yes. His golden eyes found hers again. Why did you come here? To wake me? No. I came to find a bathroom and got lost. He stared at her. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh, though it clearly hurt his throat. You got lost. The ship is confusing. Everything curves the wrong way. I designed those corridors myself, he said. They follow the natural flow of magical energy. Well, they're very disorienting for normal people. This time he definitely laughed. It was weak, broken, but real. And the sound of it echoed through the sanctum like something precious returning to the world. Velsara arrived an hour later, followed by Commander Rix and half the council. They found Yuna sitting on the edge of the platform while the Dragon Prince slowly ate some simple food Kite had brought. Your Highness, Velsara said, bowing deeply, we are honored beyond words by your awakening. The galaxy has waited. I know, Hyunwoo said quietly. I have heard everything over the years. Every ritual, every prayer, every political discussion held in this chamber. Commander Rick stepped forward eagerly. Then you know how important your knowledge is to the Council. The technology of the Seraphim could... I know what everyone wants from me. Hyunwoo's voice had grown cold. Power, knowledge, weapons. It was the same 3,000 years ago. The room fell silent. Yuna looked at him with concern. The warmth he had shown her moments ago was gone, replaced by walls built over millennia of being used. The curse, Velsara said carefully. We have studied it extensively. It was designed to trap someone who was treated only as a symbol, never as a person. Is that correct? Hyunwoo closed his eyes. My people worshipped me from the moment I was born. I was never allowed to be ordinary. Never allowed to have friends, only followers, only servants, only people who wanted things from me. He opened his eyes and looked at Yuna. And then you walked in and complained about my sleeping habits. I mean, 3,000 years is a lot, Yuna said weakly. You spoke to me like I was just a person, not a prince, not a god. Just a person who sleeps too much. Something softened in his expression. Do you know how long I waited to hear something like that? Velsara watched this exchange with growing understanding. She turned to Commander Rix and spoke firmly. The prince needs time to recover. All discussions of knowledge transfer will wait. But the council can wait. Velsara's tone left no room for argument. He has slept for 3,000 years. He can have a few weeks to remember how to be alive. After the others left, Yuna stayed. She wasn't sure if she should, but Hyunwoo asked her to. Tell me more, he said, his voice growing tired again. About your world, about humans, about fireflies. So she did. She talked until his eyes grew heavy, until his breathing slowed. But this time, when he slept, it was natural sleep, healing sleep. Not the cold prison of the curse. Before he drifted off, he spoke one more time. You talk too much, Yuna smiled. And you sleep too much. We're even. He smiled back, a real smile, full of warmth that had been frozen for millennia. Yes, he agreed. I think we are. And in that moment, in the heart of an ancient ship floating in dead space, the loneliest being in the galaxy finally found something he had never had before. A friend. The Galactic Council station was nothing like the ancient temple ship. It was bright, noisy, and full of thousands of different alien species rushing in every direction. Hyunwoo stood by a window in the medical wing, watching the chaos below with an expression that mixed wonder and confusion. Things have changed, he said quietly. Yuna stood beside him, holding 2 cups of hot noodles. A little bit, yeah. 3,000 years will do that. She handed him one of the cups. He looked at it suspiciously. What is this? Instant noodles. Greatest human invention ever. He took a careful bite. His eyebrows rose slightly. This is good. I know, right? And it only takes 3 minutes to make. Future technology. Hyunwoo looked at her like she had just revealed a profound secret. Your species has no magic, no ancient bloodlines, no natural abilities beyond basic survival. He took another bite of noodles. And yet you spread across the stars and created this. We're stubborn, Yuna said with a shrug. When something is hard, we just keep trying until it works. Or we invent something new, or we ask someone else for help. Ask for help, Hyunwoo repeated. That was considered weakness among my people. Well, your people are gone and humans are everywhere. So maybe weakness isn't so bad. He was quiet for a long moment. Yuna worried she had said something wrong, but then he smiled slightly. You speak to me like this on purpose, don't you? No careful words. No respect for my status. You said that's what broke the curse. Would you prefer I bow and call you Your Highness? Absolutely not. Then finish your noodles and stop complaining. Days turned into weeks. Hyunwoo's strength slowly returned, though his powers remained unstable. The Galactic Council had given him luxury quarters, but he spent most of his time with Yuna and her team. Tai-Ho was awkward around him at first, but eventually relaxed when Hyunwoo asked sincere questions about human leadership styles. Kite ran daily health checks and always brought extra snacks. The council, however, was growing impatient. We have been more than generous, Commander Rick said during yet another meeting. The prince has had time to recover. Now we need results. They were gathered in a large conference room. Council representatives from 12 different species sat around a curved table. Hyunwoo sat at one end. Yuna and her team stood behind him like an unofficial honor guard. What results do you expect? Hyunwoo asked calmly. Seraphim technology. Your people had weapons that could end any war. Shields that could protect entire systems. You need power. Hyunwoo's voice remained calm, but his golden eyes had grown cold. Just like the factions 3,000 years ago, everyone wanted power. Everyone wanted to control me and use my bloodline for their own purposes. This is different, another representative argued. We face threats from the outer territories. The Void Collective has been seen moving again. The Void Collective. Hyunwoo's expression flickered with something dark. I fought them once. I destroyed their home system with a single breath. Billions died because I was angry. The room went very quiet. You do not want my power, Hyunwoo continued. You do not understand what you are asking for. I slept for 3,000 years to escape being used. I will not wake to the same fate. Commander Rix leaned forward. And if we insist? Tai-Ho stepped forward, surprising everyone. Then you'll have to go through us. Through humans? One of the alien representatives laughed. You have no magic. No advanced weapons. What could you possibly? We could make a lot of noise, Tai-Ho said firmly. Humans are good at that. And the entire galaxy knows we're the ones who actually woke the prince. If you try to force him into anything, we'll make sure everyone knows about that too. Yuna felt a rush of pride for her team leader. She hadn't known Tai-Ho had this kind of courage in him. Hyunwoo looked at the humans behind him with visible surprise. "Why are you defending me? What do you gain from this?" "Nothing," Yuna said simply. "You needed help. That's enough." The meeting ended without resolution. The council was unhappy, but they weren't willing to openly fight with humans over the issue. Not yet. That night, Hyunwoo found Yuna on an observation deck, watching the stars. He sat beside her in silence for a long while. "I remembered something today," he finally said, "from before the curse." Yuna waited. "I was very young, perhaps 5 years old in human terms. There was a servant in the palace, a simple woman who cleaned the floors. She didn't know I was watching. She was humming a song while she worked. Something common, probably meaningless." He looked at his hands. "I asked her to teach me the song. She was terrified. She fell to her knees and begged forgiveness for not bowing when I entered. I tried to tell her I didn't want worship. I just wanted to learn the song." "Did she teach you?" "She was too afraid. She thought it was a test, that I would punish her for treating me as a common child." His voice was heavy with old pain. "I never spoke to her again. I never spoke to any of them again. What was the point? They could never see me as anything but the prince." Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "What was the song?" "I don't know. She never finished humming it." "That's really sad?" "Yes." He looked at her. "Today, when your team leader defended me, when you all stood behind me, I felt something I have not felt in 3,000 years. It was like someone was finally seeing the person instead of the prince." Yuna smiled. "That's because you're not that scary up close. You eat instant noodles and ask too many questions about human television shows." "Your television shows are fascinating. The concept of people dramatically pretending to be other people for entertainment is very strange. Wait until I show you cooking competitions." He smiled, and again she was struck by how it transformed his face. The ancient dragon prince, the last of a dead empire, looked almost young when he smiled. "May I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "Why did you treat me like a friend from the beginning, before you knew anything about me or the curse?" Yuna thought about it seriously. "Because everyone deserves that," she finally said. "It doesn't matter if you're a dragon prince or the guy next door. Everyone deserves to be treated like a person, to have someone who doesn't want anything from them except company." Hyunwoo was quiet for a long time, looking at the stars. "Among my people, I was considered the most powerful being in existence," he said softly. "I could reshape reality with a thought, but I would have traded all of that power for what you just described." For one person who wanted nothing but company, he looked at her with golden eyes that had seen the birth and death of civilizations. "Thank you, Yuna, for finding me, for talking to me, for being my friend." Yuna grinned. "Thank you for finally waking up. The talks were getting pretty one-sided." He laughed, and the sound was warm and real. And somewhere in his ancient heart, Hyunwoo felt something that had been frozen for millennia finally beginning to thaw. The warning came in the middle of the night. Alarms screamed through the council station, red lights flashing in every corridor. Yuna stumbled out of her quarters, half-dressed, to find Ki-tae already running toward the main deck. "What's happening?" she shouted over the noise. "The Void Collective," Ki-tae said, his face pale. "They're here!" The command center was chaos. Holographic maps showed a massive fleet emerging from deep space, hundreds of dark ships that seemed to swallow light itself. Council officers shouted orders while diplomats argued about what to do. Hyunwoo stood in the center of it all, perfectly still, staring at the approaching fleet. "They felt me wake," he said quietly. They have been waiting 3,000 years for this moment. Commander Rix grabbed him by the arm. You have to fight them! You destroyed their home system before. Do it again! Hyun-woo pulled free, his golden eyes flashing with anger. I destroyed their home system because I lost control. Billions died, innocent people who had nothing to do with the war, children, families. His voice cracked. I can still hear them screaming when I close my eyes. They're going to kill us all. Then I will leave. Hyun-woo turned toward the exit. I will surrender myself. They want me, not you. If I go, perhaps they will spare. No. Yuna stepped in front of him, blocking his path. She was small compared to his ancient presence, just a human with no magic and no power. But she stood firm. No, she said again. You don't get to do that. Yuna, I am trying to protect. You're trying to run away. That's different. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. My power destroyed entire civilizations. I cannot control it. If I fight, I might kill everyone trying to help me. Then don't fight alone. Taeho stepped forward to stand beside Yuna, then Kitae, then other members of the human crew. One by one, they formed a line in front of the Dragon Prince. You don't abandon friends because things get hard, Yuna said. That's not how this works. You're stuck with us now. Hyun-woo stared at them in disbelief. You would die for me? We have known each other for weeks. I am not worth... That's not your decision to make, Taeho interrupted. We decided you're our friend. Friends protect each other. Even against impossible odds, Kaite added quietly. The council representatives watched this exchange with confusion. High Priestess Velsara, who had arrived during the argument, stepped forward. The humans are correct, she said. We have spent 3,000 years trying to wake the prince. We will not abandon him now. She looked at the other dignitaries. Will we? Slowly, reluctantly, heads began to nod. Even Commander Rix, despite his frustration, signaled agreement. The council will fight, he said grudgingly, but we need more than courage. We need a plan. Everyone looked at Hyun-woo. He was still staring at Yuna and her team, an expression of wonder on his face. No one has ever risked anything for me before, he said softly. In my entire existence. Everyone wanted to use me or worship me or fear me. But no one ever stood in front of danger and said they would protect me. Well, now someone has. Yuna reached out and touched his arm. So maybe try to believe you're worth protecting. Hyun-woo closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted in his expression. The walls he had built over millennia had developed a crack. My power is returning, he said slowly. But I am afraid to use it. Last time, I lost control. I cannot bear to cause that much death again. Then we help you aim, Yuna said. What? You have the power, but you're scared of missing your target and hitting innocent people. So we help you aim. We coordinate. We make sure you only hit the bad guys. Hyun-woo looked at her like she had suggested something revolutionary. That is not how my people fought. We fought alone. Power was personal. Sharing it was weakness. And your people are gone, Yuna reminded him gently. Maybe it's time to try something new. The next hours were spent in frantic preparation. Human tacticians worked with Etherian spellcasters to develop a combined strategy. Ships were arranged in protective formations. Shields were layered and reinforced. At the center of it all, Hyun-woo sat with Yuna and her team, learning to communicate in ways his ancient pride had never allowed. When you feel the power building, tell us, Kitae explained, monitoring devices attached to Hyun-woo's temples. We can track the energy levels and help you direct it. What if I lose control? Then I'll talk you through it, Yuna said simply. I've been talking you through things since we met. This is just one more thing. The Void Collective fleet was now visible on long-range sensors. Their ships were made of something that looked like frozen darkness, angular and wrong. They broadcast no demands, made no attempts at communication. They had waited 3,000 years for revenge. Words were unnecessary. Hyun-woo stood at the main viewport, watching them approach. Behind him, the combined fleet of the Council prepared for battle. Ahead of him, ancient enemies prepared to finish what they had started millennia ago. Yuna stepped up beside him. "Scared?" she asked. "Terrified," he admitted. "Good. That means you care about getting it right." He looked at her, this small human who had changed everything. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, and we figure out what to do next. But you won't be alone when it happens. That's the difference." Hyun-woo took a deep breath. For the first time in his long existence, he felt something other than isolation before battle. He felt supported, protected. He felt like someone had his back. "Yuna," he said quietly. "Yeah? If we survive this, I want you to show me your hometown. The place with the fireflies." She grinned. "Deal, but only if you promise to stop sleeping so much." Despite everything, he laughed. And in that moment, with darkness approaching and death likely, the Dragon Prince felt more alive than he had in 3,000 years. The Void Collective fleet crossed into weapon range. "All ships, prepare for battle." Commander Rix's voice echoed through every speaker. Hyun-woo felt his ancient power rising within him, vast and terrifying. But this time, he was not alone. "We're with you," Yuna said, squeezing his arm. "Now show them what humans and dragons can do together." The first shots were fired, and the battle for the galaxy began. The battle was chaos. Void Collective ships crashed through the defensive lines like waves breaking against rocks. Their weapons fired beams of pure darkness that ate through shields and armor as if they were paper. Council ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. On the command deck, Hyun-woo watched the destruction with growing horror. His people had fought the Void Collective millennia ago, and he remembered what they were capable of. But seeing it again, watching innocent crews die, made his heart ache with old guilt. "Shields at 40%, an officer shouted. "The Eastern Fleet is collapsing. We're receiving distress calls from—" "Enough." Hyun-woo stepped forward. "I have to go out there." Yuna grabbed his arm. "Wait, the plan, remember? We coordinate. You don't go alone." "There is no time for coordination. People are dying." "And more people will die if you lose control again." She forced him to look at her. "Trust us. Trust the plan. Trust me." Hyun-woo's golden eyes were wild with fear and power. Energy crackled around him, leaking from a body that barely contained the force within. But Yuna didn't let go. "Taeho," she said without looking away from the prince. "Get the formations ready. Kite, monitor his vitals. Everyone else, clear me a path to the forward deck." "You cannot come with me," Hyun-woo protested. "The energy alone could—" "I've survived your snoring for weeks. I can handle some energy." Despite everything, he almost smiled. "I do not snore." "You absolutely do. Now let's go save the galaxy." They made their way to the forward observation deck, a transparent dome that extended beyond the main hull. From here, they could see the battle in all its terrible glory. Void ships swarmed like insects of darkness. Council vessels burned and died. Hyun-woo closed his eyes and reached inward. The power was there, ancient and terrible, waiting to be unleashed. He felt the same fear he had felt 3,000 years ago, the fear of losing himself, of becoming nothing but destruction. Then he felt Yuna's hand on his shoulder. "I'm here," she said simply. "Start small, just one ship. Target the one on the left, the big ugly one." He opened his eyes and focused on a void cruiser that was tearing through a council carrier. He raised his hand, felt the power flow through him, and released a controlled burst. A beam of golden fire shot from his palm, and struck the cruiser dead center. The dark ship crumbled, disintegrating into ash. "Good," Yuna said. "Again. The next one, by the station's third ring." He struck again. Another ship fell. "Now 3 at once. The cluster near the medical frigates." 3 more ships died. Commander Rix's voice came through the speakers, shocked and hopeful. "The Dragon Prince is engaging. All ships form up around his position. Protect him." The Council fleet rallied. Ships that had been retreating turned back to fight. The Etherian spellcasters began weaving protective barriers around Hyunwoo's location. Human pilots flew in tight formations, providing cover fire. And in the middle of it all, Yuna kept talking. "That's it. You're doing great. Breathe. Don't hold your breath. It makes the power unstable." "How do you know that?" Hyunwoo asked between strikes. "I don't. I'm making it up, but you're breathing now, aren't you?" He laughed, and a burst of power accidentally destroyed 2 ships instead of 1. "Careful," Yuna said. "Happy feelings make you explode harder." "That is the strangest thing anyone has ever said to me." "You're welcome." The Void Collective flagship began to move. It was the largest vessel in their fleet, a massive structure that looked like a wound in reality itself. From its center, something stirred, an ancient consciousness that recognized Hyunwoo across the void. "Dragon Prince." The voice echoed in everyone's minds, cold and hateful. "You ended our world. Now we end yours." Dark energy began to gather around the flagship. Sensors screamed warnings. This was no ordinary attack. This was everything the Void Collective had, focused into a single devastating strike. "That's going to destroy the entire station," Kaite said over the communicator. "Maybe the whole system." Hyunwoo felt the enormity of the incoming attack. To stop it, he would have to release everything, all of his power, all at once. And if he did that, "I could destroy everything," he whispered. "Friend and enemy alike. I don't have enough control." Yuna moved to stand directly in front of him. She took his face in her hands and made him look at her. "Then aim at me," she said. "What?" "Focus on me, my voice, my face. When you let go, keep me in your mind. I'll be your target lock. Everything you don't want to hit is behind me. Everything you want to hit is ahead." That's not how power works. You've been doing power your way for 3,000 years and it didn't work. Try my way. The Void flagship's attack reached critical mass. There were seconds left. Hyunwoo looked into Yuna's eyes, brown and ordinary, human and warm. So different from the golden dragon eyes of his own people, so different from the cold darkness of the void. He released everything. Golden fire poured from him like a star being born. It erupted outward in a focused wave, burning past Yuna without touching her, past the Council fleet without harm, and struck the Void flagship with the fury of 3,000 years of imprisoned power. The flagship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. The concentrated light erased it from reality, along with every Void ship in its vicinity. The remaining enemy fleet froze. Then, as if moved by a single mind, they retreated. They had waited millennia for revenge, but they had not expected this. They had not expected the Dragon Prince to have friends. In seconds, the dark ships vanished into deep space, fleeing the impossible thing they had witnessed. Hyunwoo collapsed. Yuna caught him before he hit the ground, his massive ancient body suddenly feeling fragile in her arms. His golden eyes flickered open, exhausted but clear. Did I hurt anyone?" "No." Yuna smiled, tears running down her face. "Just the bad guys. You did it." "We did it," he corrected weakly. "I could not have... without you. Rest now. You can thank me properly later." Around them, the station erupted in cheers. Council species who had never agreed on anything before embraced in relief. Etherian spellcasters wept openly. Human crews shouted victory across their communications. And in the middle of it all, a young human woman held an ancient dragon prince in her arms, gently carrying him toward the medical bay. The galaxy watched. They would tell stories about this day for generations, the day the dragon prince saved them all. But Yuna would remember it differently. She would remember the moment Hyunwoo laughed during a battle. She would remember the trust in his eyes when he let go of control. She would remember a lonely man finally learning that he didn't have to fight alone. That was the real victory. Everything else was just fireworks. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Council Station. The galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. The Void Collective had retreated to the outer edges of known space, their power broken. They were no longer a threat, though patrols kept watch just in case. The Council had stabilized, united by the shared experience of near destruction and miraculous survival. And Hyunwoo, the last dragon prince of the Seraphim Empire, had become the galaxy's most unusual celebrity. He was no longer confined to council stations or temple ships. He traveled freely, usually with Yuna's team by his side. But today was special. Today, he was visiting Earth for the first time. The shuttle descended through white clouds, and Hyunwoo pressed his face to the window like a child. "Those are mountains," Yuna said, pointing. "And that blue part is the ocean. And see that green area? That's where I grew up." "It's beautiful," he whispered. "It's pretty ordinary, actually. Lots of planets have mountains and oceans." "No," he shook his head. "I mean, it is beautiful because it is yours. Because this is where you came from." Yuna didn't know what to say to that, so she just smiled. The shuttle landed in a small field near a village surrounded by mountains. The air was fresh and cool, carrying the scent of pine trees and wildflowers. Hyunwoo stepped out and stood very still, breathing deeply. "I had forgotten," he said, "what it feels like to stand on solid ground under an open sky. For 3,000 years I was surrounded by metal and magic. This is different." "Good different or bad different?" "Good. Very good." Yuna led him through the village streets. People stared, of course. It was not every day that a dragon humanoid with golden eyes and elegant horns walked through their small town. But Yuna had warned everyone ahead of time, and the villagers were polite enough to only whisper their amazement behind their hands. They arrived at a small house with a garden full of flowers. An elderly woman stood at the door wearing an apron and a suspicious expression. "Grandmother," Yuna said in Korean, "this is my friend Hyunwoo." Grandmother looked up at the ancient dragon prince. He towered over her, radiating power that had destroyed fleets and saved civilizations. She examined him from head to toe. "You're too thin," she announced. "Come inside. I made food." Hyunwoo looked at Yuna helplessly. She just grinned. "Welcome to Earth. Nobody escapes grandmother's kitchen." The next hour was unlike anything Hyunwoo had experienced in his long existence. He sat at a wooden table while an elderly human woman piled plate after plate of food in front of him. She asked him questions without waiting for answers. She patted his hand sympathetically when she heard he had slept for 3,000 years without eating. She made him try every dish twice. "Good boy," she said approvingly when he finished his third bowl of rice. "At least you know how to eat properly. Yuna forgets to eat when she's working. Bad habit." "I am aware," Hyunwoo said seriously. "I have witnessed this behavior. It is concerning." "See?" Grandmother pointed at him. "Smart friend. You should listen to him." "Grandmother, please. Now." The old woman's expression shifted slightly. "Yuna tells me you had no friends before her. Is this true?" Hyunwoo was silent for a moment. "Yes, my people worshipped me. They feared me, but they did not. They could not see me as a person, only as a symbol." Grandmother reached over and patted his cheek gently. That sounds very lonely. It was. Well, you have friends now. You have Yuna and her team. And now you have me. She smiled. I expect you to visit regularly. I will teach you to make kimchi. Hyunwoo's golden eyes went wide. I would like that. Very much. Good. Now finish eating. You're still too thin. Later that evening, Yuna took Hyunwoo to a hillside overlooking the village. The sun had set, and the sky was filled with stars. But something else filled the air around them. Tiny floating lights that drifted and danced in the darkness. Fireflies, Yuna said softly. I told you about them, remember? Hyunwoo watched the glowing insects with wonder. One landed on his outstretched finger, its light pulsing gently. In my culture, he said, we believed that the souls of the dead became stars, but this... He watched the firefly glow and drift away. This is more beautiful than any star. They're just bugs. Nothing is ever just anything. He looked at her. You taught me that. You saw a sleeping stranger and treated him like a friend. You looked at an ancient monster and saw a person who was lonely. You're not a monster. I have done monstrous things. I have killed billions. And you've spent 3,000 years paying for it. I think that's enough. Hyunwoo was quiet for a long time. The fireflies danced around them, their lights reflecting in his golden eyes. Why? He finally asked. Why did you treat me like a friend from the very beginning, before you knew anything about me? Before you knew if I was good or evil, dangerous or safe? You just spoke to me like I was an ordinary person. Yuna thought about it carefully. Because everyone deserves that, she said. It doesn't matter if you're a dragon prince or the guy who lives down the street. Everyone deserves to be seen, to be talked to like they matter, to have someone who doesn't want anything from them except their company. That is a very human way of thinking. Maybe. But it worked, didn't it? He smiled. Yes, it worked. They sat in comfortable silence as the fireflies floated around them. Somewhere in the village below, lights were turning on in windows. Families were gathering for evening meals. Normal life continued, unaware of the ancient prince and the young engineer watching from the hillside. I have decided something, Hyunwoo said suddenly. What's that? I am going to stay, here, with humanity. He looked at her. Not as a protector, or a weapon or a symbol. Just as a friend, if you will have me. Yuna pretended to think about it. I don't know. You still sleep too much. And you still talk too much. Then I guess we're even. He laughed, and she laughed with him. And in that moment, on a hillside surrounded by fireflies, the Dragon Prince felt something he had never felt in 3,000 years of existence. He felt like he was home. High Priestess Velsara had traveled to Earth to witness this moment. She stood at a distance, watching the human and the prince laugh together under the stars. Magic could not wake him, she said quietly to Taeho, who stood beside her. Our most ancient rituals failed. Our most powerful spells were nothing. But Yuna did it with bad jokes and instant noodles, Taeho said with a slight smile. Yes. Velsara bowed her head respectfully. The Etherian Order has much to learn from your species. Connection, friendship, treating others as equals regardless of their power. She looked at him. These are greater gifts than any magic. The seasons changed. Hyunwoo learned to make kimchi with grandmother. He attended human festivals and sat through awkward dinners where relatives asked when he was going to find a nice partner. He shared seraphim knowledge freely, not weapons, but medicine and art and history. He helped build and heal and grow, and through it all, Yuna was there, talking too much, making bad jokes, treating him like any ordinary friend. On the anniversary of his awakening, they stood together on the same hillside, watching the fireflies. 1 year, Yuna said. How does it feel? Hyun-woo looked at the lights floating around them, at the village below, at the stars above. It feels like beginning, he said. For the first time in 3,000 years, I am not waiting for something. I am not running from something. I am simply living. That's good, right? Yes. He smiled at her and his ancient eyes were warm. That is very good. Yuna grinned. So, you're finally getting enough sleep? You still talk too much. And you still sleep too much. Some things never change. He laughed. She laughed. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the Dragon Prince looked forward to tomorrow. Because tomorrow, there would be more talking, more jokes, more instant noodles and kimchi lessons and awkward dinners with grandmother. Tomorrow, there would be friendship. And that was more precious than any treasure the Seraphim had ever created.